You both have read every book in the Wheel of Time series, and one question we have is, how long does it take you to record one of the Wheel of Time books?
2 to 3 times as long as it takes a reader to read it.
Allowed, yes.
Right?
Yeah, and that does not include the the pre-reading before you even start recording. Because you have to know the story ahead of time.
Right, so 800 to 1,000 pages each book, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
So many evenings and empty days spent on the couch, working hard, reading.
Mm-hmm. And then trying to get it all down.
There are a lot of pronunciations that you have to worry about in the Wheel of Time series. Did you ever consult with Robert Jordan about pronunciations?
When we first started this, we contacted Robert Jordan initially, and he pretty much gave us carte blanche with the names, other than the fact that there are several names in the glossaries in the first books. But quickly the number of characters expanded beyond those. And so we kind of, I guess, just used the rules, so to speak, of how the pronunciation that he had kind of outlined in those first few names to continue that. I don't know that we've ever heard anyone object to the way we've pronounced a name.
I did talk to someone who was a fan of the series and had listened to all the recorded books, who was shocked to hear that we pronounced it Aes Sedai, because he had some other different pronunciation in his head.
I guess part of it was it's more important to tell the story and to stay true to the nature of the characters. So the names, to a certain degree, become incidental. But no, it's and to a certain degree, you want to just keep it in that world, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
We have lots and lots of arguments in which I say, no, according to all the rules that we've established that we go by, you couldn't possibly have this pronunciation. And Michael will say, yes, but it just feels French to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So
it's very personal, I guess.
And part of it is when you get to see what the character does, it almost lends itself. This is a heroic character or whatever, so the name has to be.
Or this is a French character.
Or this is a comic character. So
yeah, that's sort of redundant. Most of the French characters could be comic,
yes,
aren't they?
That's true. Yeah.
We do have a 3-ring binder with how many pages?
Close to 100.
Close to 100 pages with probably 20 names on each page. There are thousands of characters, and we have most of them all written down, and we try to keep track of how we say them. And unfortunately, sometimes Michael will come out of the booth and mention a character in passing, and my stomach will drop, and I will say, how did you say that name? And I'll realize that I've been saying the name differently.
Yeah, we've had to go back and go, no, we're going to make this agree.
Do either of you have a favorite character from The Gathering Storm or from the Wheel of Time series?
That's so hard because
they're all so great.
Yeah. I mean, and they're so different. I mean, I love the Matt story.
I was just thinking about Matt.
Yeah, because he's so funny. And his...
And Sanderson does something just a little... He pushes it a little bit further into the world of comedy.
Yeah, but it was that way with Robert Jordan.
The backstory that he gave his compatriots.
No, that was
when
just
he created
that was
backstories, and one of them, even when the mission was abandoned, the other one was like, "So I have an aunt."
Yes.
Yeah. No, you don't have an aunt. That's made up.
Is there one character that's particularly fun for you to voice?
Well,
hands down,
Loyal. Yeah, yeah. When we encountered Loyal, in the first book, and there you are, and you have the description of his voice and the description of what Loyal is, and he has a 3-page monologue to start with. So it's like, okay, go for it. And that's I think the charm of the books for me, in large part to a certain degree, is that he's written stories where you have to go for those voices because they're big.
And I am I personally am very, very fond of the Murdrolls because, well, at least the voice that I use, it's actually you speak it on an inhalation. So you're talking like this. Yeah. And it's the kind of creepy, ghosty voice that you would use as a kid when you were telling a ghost story, and I love that I can use that.
Yeah. But Loyal was...
Loyal's
yeah, and then when his mother, that was... and his girlfriend, a dialogue between those characters was quite fun.
And the other thing about, I have to say, as a female, the other thing is I love the strength of the female characters. There are so many kick-ass, strong women in this series that, you know, I would just think if I were a preteen, teenage girl reading this series, it would be awesome because they're real women. They're not superheroes. They're not sort of inhuman characters. They're very human, but they have these great, great strengths, and they're quirky. They're all very, very individual.
Michael, you read Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series as well. Is it hard for you to go back and forth between characters written by the same author?
It really isn't that hard, I would say, because, well, for one thing, the characters coming from the Wheel of Time series were so ingrained. It's amazing, first of all, how you come back to a book and all of a sudden you come across a character and you're like, what is that? Oh, right, because the initial encounter with that character was so strong that it just kind of prints itself, so that even if you haven't reread the book 2 years later, you'll be like, oh, that's that character. And part of that is the author setting it up to kind of remind you of that if you haven't reread the book recently. With regard to the Mistborn series, those characters' voices were so clear and just very different from the Gathering Storm, but also from the Robert Jordan. And I think that's one of the strengths, I think, of Mr. Sanderson's writing, is that he gives such a very clear voice to each one of the characters that it becomes very easy to distinguish them and to perform them. In fact, I look forward to it. So, no, it was not hard at all, but that's really a credit to the writers involved.
I've heard that Robert Jordan used to listen to the Wheel of Time audiobooks to get a perspective on his characters and his books. Did Robert Jordan ever give you any feedback on your performance over the years?
I don't know if that's true or not. We had very little contact with him after the initial book first came out.
I think we were told a couple times that he was pleased with what we were doing.
Yes, and it was very flattering. I want to say the challenge for me in the first couple of books was that it was largely, I want to say 90%, the three men's characters, and then gradually the women's characters began to assert themselves. I think the last 5 or 6 books have been about 60-40 in terms of women's writing to the men's part. But no, if he's listened to them and found some new perspective, that's very flattering. But we didn't really get a whole lot of feedback from him, other than they kept coming back to us to say record the next one. So we thought, well, we must be doing something right.